What's up, guys? Welcome back to another daily Bible reading snapshot. Today we're reading Joshua 16, 17, and 18. And in these chapters, we're going to continue what we studied yesterday, where the people of Israel got their tribal allotments. So basically, these tribes, as they went into the land, they got their portion of land. And what's described here is all of the cities that they had and kind of where the boundary went from this to this. And for us, a lot of the names are unknown. You probably never been there. You probably don't know a lot of these cities. But I want you to imagine it was like our landmarks. Imagine we said that your family's land went from RSM through Lake Forest, through Portola Hills, over up into North Irvine. You'd say, okay, I can kind of picture that on a map. It's all those areas up there east of the 5 freeway. That's kind of what's being described here. Obviously, not here, not the 5 freeway and stuff like that, but that's what it would be. So I think it's important for us to see these tribal allotments because God was so clear that he wanted his people to have a land to themselves, and he wanted them to dwell with each other, and he wanted them to have set portions of land. I think that's really important because as the nation would grow and progress, they would know that their law said, this is the tribal allotment for our lands. I just think that's really important as they developed as a nation. It's important for us to know too. So there's something we see here though. They were not fully obedient. If you remember, one of those big commands that God had for the people of Israel was for them to drive everybody out. But the problem is the tribe of Manasseh here in Joshua 17 verse 12 says they did not do that completely. It says Manasseh couldn't take possession of the cities, some of the Canaanite cities, and the Canaanites still dwelled there. Now, verse 13, when the people of Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but they did not utterly drive them out. It seemed like these Israelites had a pragmatic or practical reason not to obey God, but the problem was God had specific instructions and he told them to do it, and because they disobeyed, it would be a massive pain for them. There'd be a lot of consequences for this sin. And really the entire book of Judges is consequences for the people of Israel not driving their enemies out, just like God said. So they thought, well, it'd be better for us to just use them as opposed to getting them to move away somewhere else. Well, God said, get them to move away somewhere else. We don't want you taking them as slaves or anything like that. Just get rid of them. Move them away because this is God's land. God said about himself, this is my land. But the people of Israel don't listen. So chapter 18 also, the people of Israel gather at Shiloh. That's going to be an important city, so make sure you know that name as we continue to go along. We also see the tribal allotments for Benjamin, which kind of a big tribe, not really a huge tribe. We're going to see them in the book of Judges. They are not the best tribe. Let's just put it like that. We'll get to that later on. But I just want you to see Joshua's kind of setting up the rest of the story of Israel as they go into the land. So that's Joshua 16, 17, and 18 today. Let's turn to the New Testament. Let's turn to Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, we are only looking at 16 verses here, the beginning of this chapter. But what happens first is Jesus is calling some of his disciples. And you know these guys. You know Peter and Andrew, their brothers, and you know John and James, their brothers. So it says that Jesus is at the Sea of Galilee. He is preaching to the people. He goes out in Simon's boat, which Simon, remember, is not Simon, one of the many Simons from the Bible. This is Simon Peter. It says that he was in the boat with him, and as he miraculously gave them this big catch of fish, Simon Peter turned to Jesus, fell down at his knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man." So Peter's not comfortable with being around Jesus because Peter knows about himself that he's a sinful man. He looks at Jesus and all the amazing things that Jesus is doing and thinks, you must be a righteous, godly man. We should not mix. But then Jesus says, no, we are going to be a team here. I want you to, from now on, you're going to be catching men instead of fish. You're going to be a person who's making disciples for me, not a person who's going to be a fisherman anymore. So this is very, very significant because Jesus is calling normal, average, everyday people to be followers of him, and he's going to turn them into some really important people. I mean, this guy right here who doesn't even want Jesus in his boat is going to be the same guy who is going to lead the early church and who's going to preach these big sermons in Jerusalem, and so many people are going to get saved. And that's going to be through the work that Jesus does through this guy, Peter. So that happens here. And then also, Jesus cleanses a guy who has leprosy. You remember how big of a deal that was. Leprosy was a horrible disease to have. It made you be cut off from all the other people in Israel. And it says that after this, he became famous. Jesus became famous. obviously, if you're healing a leper, people are going to want to see you. And it said that when he was just surrounded by all these people, it says he would withdraw to desolate places to pray. So I think should be a convicting thing for us. Many of us say, well, we don't have time to pray because we're too busy. Look at Jesus here. He's being surrounded by people. People want to talk to him all the time, but what he does is he leaves everybody and he goes out to a desolate place, or a place where people weren't at. And he says he goes there to pray. So for us, if we're busy people, maybe what we need to do is go to a desolate place to pray, whatever that is, a place where there are not people around. Even if it's a place in your house where there aren't people, we need to go there to pray, especially when we think we're really busy, because Jesus was busier than we were. So that's conviction for you. Jesus was busier than we are. We don't really have an excuse not to pray to God either. So that's today's DBR. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for another daily Bible reading snapshot.